Sleet slices through Portland's abandoned industrial district. Inside, Detective Marcus Vance, a man isolated by his past, stands before a locked, freezing container. His canine partner, Sarge, isn't just barking, he is screaming. The sound of bolt cutters on steel, a blast of chemical cold, and inside, a 5-year-old boy, bound with industrial zip ties, his mouth sealed with silver tape. He wasn't just abandoned, he was packaged. He was silenced because of what he saw, but he isn't the target, he's the carrier. In his small, dirty backpack is a cracked hard drive, a ledger of secrets that could burn the city's elite to the ground. And when the boy whispers, "You can't tell the others," the mission changes. This is no longer a rescue. This is a war against the man who runs the system. What happens next will make you believe in the fierce loyalty of a K9 and the redemption of a broken detective. Before we begin, tell me where you are watching from. Drop your country in the comments below. If you believe no child or animal should ever face fear alone, hit subscribe now and share this story with someone who needs hope. The sleet wasn't just falling, it was an assault. It struck the reinforced windshield of K9 Unit 12 with the sharp cracking sound of fracturing ice. Detective Marcus Vance, 42 years old and 6 hours into a double shift, barely registered the noise. This particular brand of Portland weather, a bitter, freezing rain that meteorologists had theatrically dubbed the Emerald Storm, was just static. It was the soundtrack to the low-grade isolation that had become his default state. He navigated the slick, deserted streets of the Northwest Industrial District, a graveyard of corrugated steel and rain-soaked brick, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Marcus was a man who mirrored his surroundings, weathered, functional, and walled off. He had a strong, angular face defined by late-night stubble, a thin, pale scar that traced his left temple, and the kind of deep-set gray eyes that seemed to absorb the city's fog, rather than reflect it. This was the third year he was working the storm shift alone, not counting the presence in the back. In the reinforced cage behind him, Sarge, his German Shepherd partner, was the precise opposite. The dog was a coiled spring of black and tan muscle, his focused energy a tangible thing in the small cab. At 85 pounds, Sarge wasn't just a dog. He was a purpose-built officer, his intelligent amber eyes missing nothing in the gloom. He let out a low, impatient woof, a pressurized breath that meant get on with it. The radio crackled, its static sharp. Unit 12K9, respond to 4500 Northwest Industrial Way. Alarm call, 459 silent, Bay 114. Sensor trip. Dispatch shows no visual, no movement. Marcus keyed the mic, his voice flat from fatigue and disuse. 12K9, 10-4, en route, ETA 2. He didn't bother with the lights. There was no one to see them. A 459 burglary, in this weather, in this dead-end district, was a 99% probability of a false alarm. A short in the wiring, a frozen rat, a waste of fuel. The Portland Industrial Storage Facility was a grid of steel canyons, the narrow alleys between them slick with treacherous black ice. The wind howled, creating a high, flute-like sound as it passed between the rows. Marcus parked, his cruiser's headlights cutting 2 white cones into the swirling chaos of sleet. Bay 114 looked exactly as expected. The heavy-duty lock was intact. The alarm panel beside it, however, was blinking erratically, its plastic housing cracked, its seal clearly compromised by moisture. Marcus made a note, his gloved hand already reaching for his shoulder mic to clear the call. Dispatch, 12K9, call at 4500 is 1022. False alarm, weather-related, panels shorted, I'm 10-8. He was turning to go, the promise of dry socks and bitter precinct coffee pulling at him. All right, Sarge, let's... He didn't finish the sentence. Sarge, who had been performing a routine perimeter sniff, froze. His entire body went rigid. The fur on his ruff lifted. It wasn't an aggressive bark. It was a low, pressurized sound from deep in his chest. His head snapped left, away from the main row, toward an isolated block of containers set back near the river embankment. Sarge, heel! The command was sharp, but the dog ignored it, a rare and severe breach of protocol. Sarge pulled, his claws scraping the icy pavement, dragging Marcus with surprising force toward Bay 1. This unit was different. It was a large, climate-controlled container, the kind used for sensitive electronics or archives. And it was secured not with a standard, rust-flecked rental lock, but with a brand-new, heavy-gauge steel padlock. It looked absurdly new against the peeling paint of the door. Sarge pressed his nose to the metal seam and whined, a high-pitched, desperate sound that cut straight through the storm. This wasn't a man with a weapon alert. This wasn't a narcotics alert. This was a prey alert. Distress. Human distress. Marcus put his ear to the cold steel, the wind, the sleet, and then thump, faint, muffled, like something small and soft hitting the metal from within. His blood went cold. This was no longer a false alarm. This was probable cause. "Back up!" his training screamed. But the sound was weak. Backup was 5 minutes out in this storm, best case. The child, his gut screamed child, might not have 5 minutes. He made the decision. "Okay, boy, watch." He sprinted back to the cruiser, Sarge holding a fixed low growl at the container door. Marcus grabbed the 42-inch bolt cutters from the trunk. His hands, steady on the wheel moments before, now fumbled slightly with the heavy tool. The shackle of the new lock snapped with a sharp crack that was immediately swallowed by the storm. Marcus dropped the cutters, drew his service weapon, and used the tool's leverage to haul the heavy, insulated door open. A wave of chemically cold air rolled out, smelling of ozone, stale air, and something acrid, raw fear. "Portland Police, show yourself!" he commanded into the pitch-black void. His tactical flashlight, attached to his weapon, sliced the darkness. Empty metal shelves, stacks of plastic-wrapped pallets, nothing. Then Sarge lunged, barking, but it was a fine bark, not an attack bark. The beam followed the dog to the safetiest corner. There, huddled between two crates, was a small, fetal shape. It was a boy. He couldn't have been more than 5. A shock of dirty blonde hair was matted to his scalp. He was wearing only a thin, dark blue sweater and jeans, soaked through. His skin was a waxy, pale blue. He was shivering so violently, his teeth were chattering in an audible, rattling rhythm. His wrists and ankles were bound with thick, black industrial zip ties, cinched brutally tight. And across his mouth, sealing his lips shut, was a wide strip of silver, fiber-reinforced industrial tape. The boy's eyes, they were wide, blue, and utterly void of hope. They just stared into the blinding light, unblinking, as if he were already gone. "Jesus," Marcus breathed. The word was a prayer, or a curse. He holstered his weapon, the investigation momentarily forgotten, replaced by a singular, primal need to protect. "I'm police, kid. I'm Marcus. You're safe." He ripped off his heavy outer slicker, the cold hitting him instantly, and wrapped it around the small, trembling body. The boy was light, far too light. He used the small knife on his belt to slice the zip ties, revealing raw red abrasions on the skin beneath. "I'm going to get this tape off. It's going to hurt. I'm sorry." He found a corner and ripped it fast. The boy let out a choked, tearing gasp and immediately vomited, a thin, watery bile. He was severely hypothermic. Marcus scooped him up, cradling him against his tactical vest, and ran for the cruiser, Sarge flanking them protectively. He hit the "Officer Needs Assistance" button on his radio. 12K9 to dispatch. I have a child. Code 3 medical. Possible kidnapping victim at my location. Need... He stopped. The small, frozen hand, barely a child's hand, had grabbed his radio mic, pulling it from his vest. Marcus looked down, stunned. The boy, his face buried in Marcus's chest, twisted to look up at him. His blue lips barely moved. His voice was a frozen rasp, a sound that would haunt Marcus's nightmares. "No," he whispered. "No police. Please. He'll come. He always comes. You can't tell the others." The boy's words, a frozen rasp against Marcus's chest, changed everything. "You can't tell the others." It wasn't just a plea. It was a tactical warning. It meant the 911 system, the blue uniforms, the very dispatch he was about to call might be compromised. Marcus Vance looked at the small, terrified face, the blue eyes wide with a knowledge no 5-year-old should possess, and made a decision that broke a dozen regulations. He ignored the "Officer Needs Assistance" button. He ignored the standard ambulance dispatch. He pulled the cruiser into gear, sleet cracking against the windshield, and drove, hitting the siren override to cut through the empty, icy streets. He ripped his personal cell phone from his pocket, his frozen thumb struggling with the screen. One-handed, he dialed his only emergency contact. The phone rang twice. "Naomi?" His voice was rough. "I need you, now. East Precinct, back entrance. I have a child, severe hypothermia, trauma, and Naomi. Come quiet. No lights. Use your personal car. A pause on the line, then a voice, awake and sharp. No trace of sleep. I'm on my way, Marcus. Give me 10. He pulled into the secure sally port of the East Precinct, a brutalist concrete fortress against the storm. He bypassed the main booking desk, shielding the small, jacket-wrapped bundle from the few graveyard shift officers milling about. He badged his way into the detective's bullpen, a sprawling, dark room smelling of stale coffee and cold linoleum. He headed straight for interview room 2, a sterile, windowless box, and kicked the door shut, locking it. He laid the boy, still wrapped in his slicker, on the long, cold table and cranked the thermostat until the heating unit roared to life. Sarge, who had followed Marcus's every step with anxious intensity, immediately took up a guard position by the door, a low, barely audible growl rumbling in his chest. It's okay, kid. You're safe in here, I promise. The boy just shivered, his eyes darting to the locked door, unconvinced. Minutes later, a soft, coded knock. Marcus checked the peephole. Dr. Naomi Reese. He unlocked the door, and she slid in, a gust of cold air following her. Naomi was in her early 40s, her dark hair pulled back in a functional ponytail, her intelligent brown eyes already assessing the situation. She wore practical jeans, waterproof boots, and a green down vest over a fleece pullover. She was the head of pediatric trauma at Portland General, and the closest thing Marcus had to a friend. They had a shared history that involved too many late-night calls and too much loss. She took one look at the small figure on the table. My God, Marcus, what did you find? She dropped her heavy medical bag onto the table with a thud and was instantly in clinical mode. He was in a freezer container, Marcus said, his voice low, recounting the bare facts as she cut away the boy's thin, damp sweater. Bound, gagged, industrial tape, heavy zip ties. Naomi's face hardened as she saw the raw, red ligature marks on the boy's wrists. She pressed a stethoscope to his chest, then took his core temperature. He's 91 degrees, severe hypothermia, but his pulse is strong. He's a fighter. She began applying chemical heat packs to his chest, armpits, and groin, wrapping him in sterile thermal blankets from her bag. As she worked, she examined him further. Malnourished, dehydrated, older bruises, faint, on his ribs. She paused, her fingers tracing something on his ankle, just above the ligature mark. Marcus, look at this. Marcus leaned in. Just visible on the boy's heel, almost faded, was a small black ink stamp. It wasn't a tattoo. It was a property mark, like an auction lot number, a shield, bisected by 2 letters, FC. Family Coalition, Marcus guessed, his stomach tightening. Or foster care, Naomi said, her voice grim. This isn't just abuse, Marcus. This is organized. This is inventory. The boy, now slowly regaining color, remained utterly silent, his eyes fixed on Sarge. The dog had not moved, a stoic guardian. Can you tell me your name, sweetheart? Naomi asked softly. The boy just stared. Marcus brought Sarge closer, and the boy's small hand crept out from the blanket, his fingers burying themselves in the dog's thick ruff. The dog whimpered softly, licking the boy's hand. A sharp, authoritative knock rattled the door. Vance, open up! Marcus tensed. He recognized the voice. He looked at the boy, who flinched violently at the sound. It's okay, Marcus lied, motioning for Sarge to stay. He opened the door a crack. Detective Ryan McKenzie stood there, filling the doorway. Mac! McKenzie, 45, was a broad, rumpled man in a stained trench coat, his salt and pepper hair thinning, his face a map of broken capillaries. He was a precinct veteran who survived on nicotine gum and cynicism, and he fundamentally distrusted Marcus's loner canine act. He and Marcus had history, stemming from the investigation into Marcus's partner's death, an investigation Mac had officially closed as accidental. What the hell is this, Vance? Mac demanded, trying to peer past him. I got a report you cleared a 459 and then went dark, and Karis at the desk said you smuggled a civilian doc into an interview room. You running a private clinic now? It's police business, Mac. Sensitive victim, Marcus said, blocking the view. Sensitive victim, Mac scoffed, his eyes narrowing. Or a CI you're trying to hide. You don't get to run black ops out of my precinct. I want a report. Now. And who's the kid? I said I'll handle it. The hell you will. Mac pushed the door open, shoving past Marcus. He stopped cold, taking in the scene. The thermal blankets, the medical bag, the child, and the German shepherd growling by the table. Jesus, Vance, what did you do? Before Marcus could answer, Naomi stepped forward, her voice sharp as a scalpel. Detective Mackenzie, you will lower your voice or I will have you removed for interfering with a medical assessment. This child is the victim of aggravated kidnapping and attempted murder. Now, either get us sterile water and a child services rep, or get out. Mac was taken aback, but his eyes narrowed on the boy. Fine, but this is my case now, Vance. You understand? This is my file. I want your report by the book in 1 hour. He glared at Marcus, then at the dog, and stormed out, slamming the door. The boy was trembling again, the intrusion shattering the fragile safety they had built. He's gone, kid, Marcus said, his voice rough with anger. He's gone. He turned back to Naomi, who was giving the boy a small notepad and a crayon from her bag. He won't talk, she whispered. He's dissociative. Let's see if he'll draw. Marcus knelt by the table, his gaze fixed on the boy. You're safe, he said again, trying to will the boy to believe him. The boy picked up the blue crayon, his small hand shaking. He didn't draw the container. He didn't draw the storm. He drew a single crude image in the center of the page, a circle like a shield, with a jagged crack running right down the middle. Marcus froze. His blood turned to ice, colder than the storm outside. He knew that symbol. It wasn't FC. It was the unofficial insignia of a corrupt private security firm, Aegis, that had been disbanded years ago. It was the same symbol his dead partner had drawn in his own notebook, just days before his accidental death. The case wasn't closed, and this boy was right in the middle of it. The crude, crayon-drawn shield on the notepad seemed to absorb all the sound in the sterile interview room. It was a jagged, broken symbol, but to Marcus Vance, it was a ghost. He felt the blood drain from his face, a cold rush that had nothing to do with the storm outside. He hadn't seen that insignia in 2 years, not since he had found his partner, David, slumped over the wheel of his car, the accidental carbon monoxide leak already having done its work. In David's glove box, tucked into a folded map, was a bar napkin with this exact same symbol scrawled on it. Aegis, a disgraced private security firm dissolved for human trafficking, a case the department had buried. Marcus, what is it? Naomi Reese's voice cut through the memory, sharp and low. She was looking at his face, not the drawing. You look like you've seen a ghost. He forced his gaze away from the paper, meeting her intelligent, worried eyes. I think I have, he said, his voice barely a whisper. He pointed to the FC stamp on the boy's heel, then to the drawing. This isn't foster care, and that... He tapped the broken shield. That's the calling card of the people who killed David. Naomi's breath hitched. She knew the official story. She also knew Marcus never believed it. Marcus, if you're right, this precinct isn't safe. Mac logged this boy in. John Doe, male, 5 years. If that warning, you can't tell the others, is real, they already know he's here. Marcus was already moving, his lethargy gone, replaced by a cold, focused energy. Get him dressed, use the thermal blankets, layer them, we're leaving. Where are we going? Mac has the case, Naomi argued, even as she began bundling the small, silent boy. Mac answers to the captain. I answer to this kid. We're going to the only place I know is clean, my cabin. It's off-grid. They can't track us there. He unclipped his radio from his vest and tossed it onto the table. No electronics. They can ping the phone, the radio, even the cruiser. Marcus, that's tampering. That's your career. My career, Marcus said, his voice flat, ended 2 years ago. This is just overtime. He looked at the boy, who was watching him with those wide, assessing eyes. The boy hadn't made a sound, but his gaze shifted to Sarge, who was now standing, alert, a low rumble in his chest. The dog sensed the shift, the new urgency. Sarge hears it too, Marcus said. Someone's coming. He cracked the door into the bullpen. Deserted, except for Detective Mackenzie, who was at his desk across the room, back to them, yelling into his phone. I don't care what the protocol is. Get me a child services rep down here now. This was their chance. Naomi, take the back stairs to the South Sallyport. It's a maintenance exit. Your car is there. Get it running. I'll meet you. How? He scooped the boy, wrapped in blankets and his own heavy slicker, into his arms. The child was light, like a bundle of sticks. Sarge, MIT, he commanded. The German Shepherd fell into a perfect silent heel. We're taking the long way. He moved down the hallway, away from the bullpen, toward the dark evidence locker corridor. He swiped his access card at a steel door marked Stairs C Utilities. It was the one exit that didn't have an automatic log. He descended into the cold concrete stairwell, the boy's small head tucked under his chin, Sarge's claws clicking softly beside him. As they slipped into the rainy darkness of the sally port, the front doors of the East Precinct hissed open. A man stepped inside, shaking the sleet from a perfectly tailored black cashmere overcoat. He didn't look like he belonged in the grime of a graveyard shift. This was Victor Cole. He was in his mid-50s, tall, with a lean, aristocratic build. His silver-gray hair was perfectly coiffed, swept back from a high forehead. He had a sharp aquiline nose and a meticulously groomed goatee that framed a thin, unsmiling mouth. His eyes, the color of cold steel, scanned the lobby with an air of impatient ownership. He smelled faintly of bergamot and expensive leather. The desk sergeant, a rookie named Karras, looked up. "Can I help you, sir?" Victor Cole placed a slim black leather briefcase on the counter. "You can," he said, his voice a smooth, cultured baritone that carried easily over the hum of the computers. "I am Victor Cole, director of the Family Aid Coalition. I'm here regarding a ward of mine who, I believe, was just brought into your custody." At that moment, Detective Mackenzie stormed out of the bullpen, his face flushed with anger. "Who the hell are you?" Mac barked, eyeing the expensive suit. Victor didn't flinch. He simply turned, exuding a calm that made Mac's rumpled aggression look childish. "Mr. Cole, and you are?" "Detective Mackenzie, I'm running this." "Excellent." Victor snapped open his briefcase and produced a file. The cover bore a simple logo, a shield, with the letters FC. "I believe you have a John Doe, approximately 5 years old. He was reported missing from one of our transport vehicles earlier this evening. We presumed he had succumbed to the storm. A clerical error, you understand." Mac's eyes narrowed, but he took the file. He flipped it open. Inside was a laminated ID. A photo of the boy, Caleb, looking clean, healthy, and smiling, though the smile didn't reach his eyes. The name listed was Finian Brooks. The file contained court orders, custody papers, medical histories. It was flawless. "Family Aid Coalition," Mac said, testing the name. "This is your kid?" "He is a ward of our organization, yes," Victor said smoothly. "We handle high-risk placements. I'm here to retrieve him and return him to our secure facility. The boy, Finian, is a runner and has profound psychological issues. He's prone to fantasy." This was the solution Mac had been looking for, a clean handoff. No paperwork, no dead-end case. He could close the file and, better yet, pin the procedural screw-up on Vance. "Right, well, we got him. He's back in interview 2. Vance, get the kid," Mac yelled, turning toward the bullpen, not waiting for an answer. He strode down the hall, Victor Cole following a step behind, his polished shoes silent on the linoleum. "Vance is a bit protective," Mac grumbled, stopping at the door to interview room 2. "Thinks he's a one-man army with that mutt." He slammed the door open. "Vance, I said—" The room was empty. The thermal blankets were gone. The boy was gone. Sarge was gone. The only things left were a puddle of melted sleet on the floor, an overturned chair, and Marcus's police-issue radio sitting starkly in the middle of the table. On the notepad, next to the radio, was the drawing of the broken shield. Mac stared, his mind failing to compute. "What the—" Victor Cole stepped past him into the room. His steel-gray eyes took in the scene. He saw the radio on the table. He saw the crayon drawing. The mask of calm professionalism didn't slip, but a cold, terrifying fury ignited deep in his eyes. He turned his head slowly to look at Mackenzie. "Detective," he said, his voice dropping to a silken, dangerous whisper, "it appears you have a problem. And now, so do I." Naomi's dark green Subaru Outback handled the ice-slicked logging road with grinding determination, its all-wheel drive system whining in protest. They had been driving for nearly 2 hours, pushing east toward the vast, dark wilderness of Mount Hood National Forest. Marcus Vance was at the wheel, his broad shoulders hunched, his intense gray eyes flicking between the treacherous, unplowed road and the rearview mirror. He was driving with a focused, paranoid precision, never too fast, never too slow. He hadn't spoken since they had cleared the city limits, his entire being focused on one goal: disappearing. In the back seat, Dr. Naomi Reese, her face pale in the faint green glow of the dashboard, tended to the boy. Caleb, he still hadn't confirmed his name, was wrapped in 3 thermal blankets, his small body finally radiating a weak, stable heat. He was silent, his wide, traumatized blue eyes staring at the back of Sarge's head. The German Shepherd had taken the rear cargo space, sitting upright, his powerful form a dark silhouette against the swirling snow, his ears swiveling, scanning the darkness behind them, a living, breathing security system. "We're almost there," Marcus said, his voice a low rumble. He turned off the main logging road onto a track that was nearly invisible, marked only by a split cedar post obscured by snow. The Subaru bucked and slid, its headlights illuminating a dense wall of towering Douglas firs. After another half-mile, the trees opened up to a small clearing. The cabin was exactly as he'd left it. It wasn't a home, it was a fortress. Built of dark river stone and heavy cedar, it was small, Spartan, and designed to withstand the elements and intruders. It had reinforced steel doors and polycarbonate windows that looked like normal glass but could stop a heavy-caliber round. This was the sanctuary he and David, his former partner, had built with their own hands, a place to decompress, a place off the grid in every sense. Now it was a safe house. He parked the car behind a heavy woodpile, shielding it from aerial view. "Sarge, Sechern, secure," he commanded. The dog leaped from the back, disappearing into the swirling snow, his dark form moving with silent, predatory speed to circle the perimeter. Marcus unlocked the heavy steel door, his breath fogging in the frigid air. The cabin smelled of cold ash, cured wood, and gun oil. It was a single, large room, dominated by a massive stone fireplace. Marcus moved with practiced efficiency. He ignited the kindling he always left prepared, and within minutes, a roaring fire began to fight back the bone-chilling cold. Naomi settled the boy on a thick bearskin rug near the hearth. "He's stable," she reported, her voice hushed. "His core temperature is up to 94. He needs calories and hydration, fast." Marcus nodded, already working in the small, functional kitchen. He heated broth on the propane stove, his movements economical. This was his space. He was in control. Here. Sarge reappeared at the door, shaking the snow from his ruff, and gave a low woof before settling by the hearth, positioning himself between the boy and the only door. The message was clear. "I am on watch." "Now," Naomi said, accepting a mug of steaming broth, "you're going to tell me what Aegis is, and you're going to tell me why that drawing made you look like you were going to burn down the precinct." Marcus stared into the fire, the orange light flickering off the thin scar on his temple. "Aegis Security," he said, his voice flat. They were a private firm, mostly ex-military, ex-cops, high-end contracts. They ran security for the Port of Portland, logistics hubs, data centers. They were untouchable. He took a sip of his own broth, the heat doing nothing to thaw the ice in his voice. 2 years ago, my partner David started looking into them. Off the books. He was a good cop. Too good. He saw things that didn't add up. What things? "Logistics," Marcus said, the words sounding dirty. "Shipping containers logged as empty that were drawing power. Insulated containers, just like the one I found Caleb in. Consignments of electronics that were routed through shell companies. He thought they were moving narcotics, but it was worse." He got up and retrieved a locked metal file box from beneath a floorboard. He opened it. Inside was a single thin folder, David's unofficial file. He handed a photo to Naomi. It showed 4 men in black tactical gear, standing beside a shipping container. They were laughing. One of them, younger, leaner, but with the same aristocratic profile and cold eyes, was Victor Cole. David was convinced Aegis wasn't just providing security, Marcus continued. He believed they were the trafficking ring. They were using their port access and private planes to move high-value assets, not drugs. People, children. Naomi looked horrified. "And that's why he ended up dead in his car," Marcus finished, his voice raw. Detective Mackenzie, ruled it. Accidental carbon monoxide poisoning. He said David was overworked, depressed, careless. He closed the case in 48 hours, buried it. He pointed to the notepad, which Naomi had brought with them. David found that symbol, the broken shield, sketched on a manifest just before he died. Aegis was disbanded officially, but they just rebranded. Family Aid Coalition. FC. Victor Cole is the ghost David was hunting. A silence descended on the small cabin, broken only by the crackle of the fire and the howl of the wind. They were fugitives, hiding a child from a monster who wore a suit. A monster protected by a system that might include Marcus's own colleagues. Sarge, who had been lying still, suddenly lifted his head, his ears tracking a sound. He padded silently to the boy. Caleb, who had been watching the fire, had started to shiver again, but not from cold. He was clutching a small, filthy blue backpack, something Marcus hadn't even noticed. In the container, it was so small. The boy had been hiding it under his blankets. With trembling fingers, he unzipped a small side pocket. He pulled something out and held it up to Marcus. It wasn't a toy. It was a piece of damaged electronics, about the size of a deck of cards. It was a portable hard drive, its casing cracked, and the same broken shield symbol was stamped into its metallic surface. The boy's voice, the first words he had spoken since the precinct, was a tiny, terrified whisper. "He wants the box," Caleb said, his eyes locking on Marcus's. "Mommy said, run with the box." The cracked hard drive felt impossibly heavy in Marcus Vance's hand. It was an old model Aegis data vault, solid state, designed to be indestructible. This one had failed. The casing was split, perhaps from the impact of being thrown into the container, or perhaps by the boy's mother in a desperate, final attempt to destroy it. "He wants the box," Caleb had whispered. "Mommy said, run with the box." The boy, his small body finally succumbing to warmth and exhaustion, had fallen into a deep, twitching sleep by the fire, his small hands still clutching the empty blue backpack. Sarge, the German shepherd, had not left his side, his large body curled protectively around the child, a living, breathing barrier. Naomi Reese looked from the sleeping boy to the object in Marcus's hand, her face etched with a clinical, analytical horror. "Marcus, what is on that drive that is worth this?" she asked, her voice hushed. "This isn't just trafficking, this is corporate. This is David's world." "It's the ledger," Marcus said, his voice flat. He ran a thumb over the stamped broken shield. David was convinced they kept a second set of books. A ghost ledger. Who they took, where they went, who paid. It wasn't just coal. Aegis was a service for the powerful. This, he held up the drive. This is the client list. It's the only thing that could burn them all to the ground. He walked to the cabin's single workbench, a heavy table of scarred pine where he maintained his gear. He tried to interface the drive with a ruggedized laptop he kept for diagnostics. The screen flickered, recognized an unknown USB device, and then presented a wall of impenetrable encryption. "Damn it!" He slammed his fist on the table, a rare show of uncontrolled frustration. "It's locked, and the casing is cracked. I can't force it without frying the chip. It's beyond me." Naomi stepped closer. "So, what do we do? We're fugitives. We can't take this to the cybercrimes unit. You said yourself Mac is compromised, or at least complicit." Marcus stared at the failing progress bar on the screen, his mind racing through a very short, very dangerous list of contacts. There was only one name, a name he hadn't spoken in 2 years. "There's one person," he said, "the only person David trusted more than me with this stuff. But he's not stable, and he's not cheap." "Who?" "Leo Costas," Marcus said. "They called him Ghost at the precinct. He was our top forensic analyst. A genius. He could make a dead phone sing." Marcus's jaw tightened. "When David died, Leo was the only one who backed me up. He insisted the data from David's car was corrupted, that the logs were altered. Mac and the brass called him paranoid. They opened an internal investigation, and Leo, he snapped. Attacked Mac in the bullpen. They fired him, discredited him. He went off grid, even harder than I did." "Can you find him?" "I don't find him," Marcus said, grabbing his keys. "I just go to the right place and hope he's listening." He looked at Naomi, his gray eyes filled with a desperate resolve. "Stay here. Lock this door. Don't open it for anyone but me. Sarge is here. He won't let anyone near you. I'm taking the drive. I'll be back before dawn." Naomi just nodded, her face grim. "Be careful, Marcus. You're no good to this boy dead." Marcus let himself out into the raging storm, the Subaru's engine a low growl in the darkness. He drove for an hour, back toward the edges of the city, to a 24-hour electronics repair shop in a rundown strip mall. The sign, Ghost Bite Repair, flickered in the sleet. He entered. The shop was a chaotic maze of dissected computers and shelves of obsolete parts, smelling of solder and ozone. A thin, jittery man sat behind the counter, his face illuminated by 3 different monitors. This was Leo Ghost Costas. He was in his late 30s but looked 50. He was wanfully thin, almost gaunt, with a pale complexion. A scruffy, untrimmed dark beard did nothing to hide the frantic, nervous energy that seemed to radiate from him. His eyes, magnified by thick glasses, darted constantly, scanning every shadow. He wore a faded flannel shirt over a hoodie and a gray beanie pulled down to his eyebrows. He looked up, and his eyes widened in recognition. "Vance," he hissed, his voice like static. "You've got a hell of a nerve coming here. They watch this place." "I know, Leo. I need your help," Marcus said, placing the cracked Aegis drive on the counter. Leo recoiled as if it were a snake. "No. No way. Is that what I think it is? That's David's case. That's Aegis. They're back, Leo, rebranded as Family Aid Coalition. The man in charge is Victor Cole. They have a kid. They left him for dead in a freezer. He had this." That stopped him. Leo's frantic energy focused, his gaze sharpening on the drive. "Cole," he whispered, the name full of venom. He snatched the drive. "Get in the back. Now." For the next hour, Leo worked with the obsessive, frantic precision of a surgeon. He dismantled the drive's casing under a microscope, his hands soldering impossibly thin wires. "The chip is good," he muttered, "but the interface is fried. They routed the power. Smart. Okay, I'm in." He bypassed the main encryption, his fingers flying across a keyboard. A file structure appeared. It was a single, massive, encrypted file. Ledger V1. "It's here, Marcus. It's the whole damn thing. David was right. Can you open it?" Leo shook his head, his face tight with frustration. "No, it's not a password. It's a biometric key. Voice activated. And it's keyed to a female subject. I can't bypass it. Not without her. Whoever she is, she's the key." Just as Marcus felt his hope collapse, one of Leo's monitors flashed red, an alert. "Oh hell," Leo whispered, his face going pale. "What is it?" "It's an RF beacon," Leo said, his voice trembling. "That drive. It's not just storage. It's a beacon. A dead man's switch. It's designed to be inert until it's separated from its primary container, that freezer, for more than 4 hours. It's a recovery protocol." "What does that mean?" Marcus demanded, grabbing the front of Leo's shirt. "It means," Leo said, his eyes wide with terror, "that for the last 30 minutes, this thing has been screaming its exact coordinates to every receiver Victor Cole owns. You didn't just take the evidence, Marcus. You led them right to your door. They know exactly where you are. They know exactly where you are." Leo Costas's words hit Marcus Vance with the force of a physical blow. The frantic, pale analyst, his eyes wide behind thick glasses, pointed a trembling finger at the red dot pulsing on his screen. "This thing isn't just a beacon, Marcus. It's a recovery beacon. It's been screaming your cabin's exact GPS coordinates for the last 31 minutes. Marcus's blood ran cold. He wasn't just compromised, he was a target. And he had led the wolves straight to Naomi and the boy. "How long?" Marcus demanded, his voice a low growl. "They're not driving, not in this storm," Leo muttered, his fingers flying across a keyboard, running calculations. "Cole's organization, Aegis, they had air assets, a chopper. From their old logistics hub in Gresham, best guess, they're already there. You're too late." The thought of Naomi, Sarge, and the boy, cornered in his own sanctuary, made his stomach clench. "Can you stop it? Shut it down?" "Shut it down! No, it's hardwired," Leo hissed. "But I can buy you time. I can spoof the signature, create a ghost. It's an old Aegis protocol. I can clone the signal and send it racing toward the coast. It'll split their focus, but it won't hold them long. An hour, maybe. Go. Go now." Marcus didn't need to be told twice. He snatched the cracked hard drive from Leo's bench. "Do it," he ordered, already moving toward the door. "And Leo, get out of here. They know you're tied to this." "And go where, Marcus?" Leo laughed, a high-pitched, broken sound. "This is the only place I have. Now get out." Marcus burst into the storm, the sleet stinging his face. He floored the Subaru, the engine roaring in protest as the tires spun on the ice. He was racing back up the mountain, a 40-minute drive on a good day, knowing a helicopter could make it in 10. He wasn't racing to save them. He was racing to join the fight. Back at the cabin, the only sounds were the crackle of the fire and the howl of the wind. Caleb was asleep on the bearskin rug, the first real sleep he'd had in days. Naomi Reese sat in the heavy armchair, watching the flames, the fireplace poker resting against the stone hearth. Suddenly, Sarge, who had been a sleeping crescent of black and tan fur at the boy's feet, shot to his feet. His body went rigid. The fur on his spine lifted, and a low, subsonic growl vibrated in his chest. He wasn't looking at the door. He was looking at the ceiling. "Sarge, what is it, boy?" Naomi whispered, her heart stopping. And then she heard it. Not the Subaru. A sound that didn't belong. A heavy, rhythmic whoomp, whoomp, whoomp that seemed to shake the very logs of the cabin. A helicopter. The sound grew deafening, then abruptly stopped. Silence. They hadn't passed over. They had landed. "Caleb!" Naomi grabbed the boy, shaking him awake. "Caleb, wake up! We have to hide!" The boy's eyes snapped open, not with groggy confusion, but with the instant, wide-eyed terror of a hunted animal. He knew that. Sound. Sarge was at the steel door, barking now, a deep, furious, defensive roar. Naomi's mind raced. One room, no exit. Then she remembered the file box, the floorboard. Here! She dragged the heavy bearskin rug aside, her fingers fumbling with the recessed latch. She pulled the floorboard up, revealing the small, dark void. "Caleb, in, now! It's a game, a hiding game. You cannot make a sound. Do you understand?" The boy nodded, his face pale, and slid into the cramped, dark space without a word, pulling his small blue backpack in with him. Naomi covered him, sliding the rug back, her hands shaking. She grabbed the heavy iron poker. The assault was professional. There was no knock, no yelling, just the high-pitched screaming whine of a power tool drilling directly into the heavy-duty deadbolt. The lock mechanism shattered. The steel door flew open, slamming against the interior wall. 2 men spilled in. They were not street thugs. They were operators. Both wore black, non-reflective tactical gear, balaclavas, and night vision goggles pushed up on their helmets. The lead man, Kyle, was tall and moved with a terrifying, fluid grace. He was in his 40s, with cold, pale blue eyes and a shaved head, his face set in a mask of detached professionalism. He was ex-Aegis, Cole's top field agent. The second man was heavier, built for breaching, carrying a heavy duffel. "Clear," the heavy grunted, scanning the room. "No," Kyle said, his voice calm, almost bored. He clicked on a handheld sensor. "The drive is here. The signal is under the floor." He pointed his suppressed submachine gun at the rug. "And the dog is here." Sarge lunged. He was not a pet. He was a trained canine, a force of nature. He launched himself across the room, a blur of fur and teeth, aiming for the weapon arm. Kyle, surprised by the speed, took the impact, his weapon clattering to the floor. Sarge's jaws locked onto his armored forearm, shaking, growling. The heavy moved in, pulling a sidearm, trying to get a clear shot at the dog. Sarge, seeing the new threat, disengaged from Kale and pivoted, slamming his full 85 pounds into the heavy's chest, knocking him backward over the armchair. It was chaos. "Naomi, now!" a voice screamed in her head. While Kale was retrieving his weapon, Naomi burst from the shadows by the kitchen, swinging the iron poker like a baseball bat, aiming for his head. But she was a doctor. She hesitated, a fatal, fractional pause. Kale sensed the movement, turned, and took the blow on his armored shoulder. It glanced off with a dull thud. He didn't even grunt. He backhanded her across the face. The force sent her flying. Her head struck the stone fireplace with a sickening crack, and she crumpled to the floor, unconscious. Kyle raised his weapon, his cold blue eyes settling on the dog. "Stupid animal!" Sarge, seeing Naomi fall, turned to protect her, growling, his teeth bared. As Kale was about to fire, the entire cabin was instantly, violently illuminated. Blinding, high-intensity floodlights from all 4 corners of the roof snapped on, turning the snowy clearing as bright as day. A synthesized voice blared from hidden outdoor speakers. "Aegis Protocol breach. Sector 4. Lethal force engaged. Repeat, lethal force engaged." Kyle froze. He knew this system. It was David's. It was the old paranoid failsafe system Aegis themselves had designed, a scorched earth protocol. Leo, back in his shop, hadn't just created a ghost signal. He had hacked the cabin's dormant defense grid and activated it. The sound of the Subaru's engine roared into the clearing, its headlights adding to the blinding light. Marcus. Cale cursed, his professionalism finally breaking. This was a trap. "Abort! Abort! Take the package!" he yelled at his partner. The heavy, scrambling to his feet, grabbed the closest thing, Caleb's small blue backpack, which had been kicked out from under the rug during the scuffle. Kyle fired a burst toward the sound of the engine, providing cover as he and the heavy retreated into the dark trees. Marcus skidded to a halt, his weapon already drawn. He didn't fire. He ran inside. The cabin was a wreck. The door was broken, furniture overturned. Naomi was unconscious by the fire, a dark trickle of blood in her hair. Sarge was limping, a shallow graze on his hind leg, but alive. Marcus's heart stopped. "Caleb!" He ripped the rug back and pulled open the floorboard. The boy was huddled in the dark, trembling, his eyes squeezed shut, but physically unharmed. Marcus pulled him out, holding him tight. He looked at the floor, and his breathing hitched. The backpack was gone, but lying in the dark corner of the hiding spot, where it had fallen from the bag, was the cracked Aegis hard drive. Kyle had taken the decoy. He had left the prize. The synthesized voice, lethal force engaged, echoed and died, replaced once again by the high-pitched scream of the wind. The blinding security lights remained on, illuminating the snowy clearing in a harsh, artificial daylight. The cabin, which had been a sanctuary, was now a crime scene. Marcus Vance's ears rang. He stood in the wreckage of the room, the smell of cordite sharp in his nostrils. He had the boy. He had the drive. But Naomi was down. He rushed to her side, his heart hammering against his ribs. "Naomi!" She was unconscious, slumped unnaturally against the heavy stone fireplace. A dark, viscous line of blood was matting her dark hair, stark against the paleness of her skin. Her breathing was shallow. He checked her pupils with his tactical light. They were uneven. A severe concussion, at minimum. Possibly a skull fracture. This was beyond his field trauma skills. Sarge, limping heavily on his left hind leg, whined and nudged Naomi's still hand, looking back at Marcus with confused, loyal eyes. The graze on his leg was bleeding, but it was superficial. Naomi was not. Caleb, his small face a mask of shock, was clutching the cracked Aegis hard drive to his chest, his knuckles white. She fell, he whispered, the words catching in his throat. The bad man hit her. "I know, Caleb. She's going to be okay," Marcus lied, his mind racing. He was burned. This cabin was burned. Kyle and his team had the decoy backpack, but they would realize their mistake soon. Cole would be furious. He would send them back, not for a recovery, but for an execution. He had minutes, maybe an hour. He couldn't call 911. It would bring the precinct, and Mac, and Cole. He pulled out the burner phone Leo had given him, his fingers already dialing. "Leo, they're gone. They took the bait, the backpack, but they hurt Naomi. She's unconscious, head trauma, severe. I need sterile transport off the books. Now." Leo's voice was frantic, static-laced. "On it. I know a guy, ex-corpsman, runs an unlicensed trauma bus for high-end clients. He's expensive, but he's fast, and he doesn't ask questions. I'll send him to your coordinates. But, Marcus, they know your face. They know the cabin. You have to be gone before he even gets there." "I can't leave her," Marcus growled. "You don't have a choice. Get her ready to move. I'll route him. Now. The drive. Did you get it?" "I have it," Marcus said, looking at the cracked device in Caleb's hands. "You said it's voice-locked. A female subject. I need a name, Leo. Who is this kid? Who is his mother?" "Way ahead of you," Leo's voice crackled. "After you left the precinct, I hacked their internal server. I wanted to see what Mac was looking at. He was looking at the file Victor Cole gave him, the one with the fake name, Finian Brooks. But the file wasn't entirely fake, Marcus. It was just altered. The custody transfer document, it was real, but it was forged. I dug into the metadata. The digital signature belongs to a woman named Isabel Reyes. She was reported missing 2 weeks ago. Cole's coalition didn't find Caleb. They took him. And I think I know where they're holding her." "Where?" "Cole is smart. He didn't kill her. He's holding her, probably as leverage, or maybe to unlock this drive himself. He has her at a private wellness center in the Pearl District. High security, discreet. It's another Aegis front. She's a prisoner, Marcus. She's the key." A flash of headlights cut across the clearing. A black windowless van, built like an armored truck, slid to a stop. Sarge erupted in a fresh volley of barks. "Easy, boy. He's a friend. Maybe." A man stepped out. He was not a doctor. He was a large man, built like a linebacker, with a shaved head and a calm, bored expression. His arms were covered in intricate sleeve tattoos, and he wore tactical EMT pants and combat boots. This was Reese, the ex-corpsman. He moved with a heavy, deliberate calm, carrying a massive trauma bag. "Leo sent me," Reese said, his voice a low gravel. He didn't ask what happened. He knelt by Naomi, his assessment immediate and professional. "Severe concussion, possible epidural hematoma, she needs a CT, now." "Can you take her?" Marcus asked. Reese looked up, his eyes flat. "I can take her to a private clinic that doesn't ask for insurance. It'll cost you." Marcus reached into the file box where he kept his emergency cash. David's old stash. He handed Reese a thick wad of bills. "Do it. Keep her alive. Get her stable. I'll contact you through Leo." Reese nodded once. He and Marcus loaded Naomi onto a collapsible gurney. As the van's doors shut, Marcus felt a profound sense of failure. He had pulled her into this, and she had paid the price. The van disappeared down the logging road, its taillights swallowed by the snow. Marcus was alone, in a compromised location, with a wounded dog, a traumatized child, and a hard drive that held the key to destroying a monster. He looked at Caleb, who was shivering, his gaze fixed on the spot where Naomi had been. "It's our turn, kid," Marcus said, his voice hardening. He grabbed a spare radio from his gear. "We're going to get your mom." He couldn't go back to Leo's. He couldn't stay here. He had one move left, the most dangerous one. He, Caleb, and Sarge got into the Subaru and drove, not toward the city, but to a high point on the mountain, a scenic overlook. He used the burner phone to make one last call. It rang twice. "Mackenzie." The voice on the other end was a furious bark. "Vance, you son of a bitch. You're finished. You're fired. You obstructed, you tampered, you kidnapped a state's witness. I have an APB out on you and your mutt right now." Marcus waited, letting Mac vent. "Are you done?" Marcus asked, his voice cold as the wind outside. "Listen to me, and listen carefully. Did Victor Cole get his package?" There was a confused pause. "What?" "Yeah. His men picked it up. A blue backpack. He closed the file. Why?" "Because he's an idiot," Marcus said, the faintest hint of a grim smile touching his lips. "He took the bait. I have the real prize. I have the Aegis Ledger." The silence on the other end was absolute. "2 years ago, Mac, you buried David's case. You called him depressed. You called him careless. You were wrong. I'm holding the drive that proves it. It implicates Cole, Aegis, and, I'm guessing, people you're terrified of. I'm going after Cole's Wellness Center on 23rd Avenue. I'm going to get the key. Her name is Isabel Reyes. You can either hunt me down, or you can find whatever is left of your badge, and you can help me finish what David started. Your call, detective." Marcus didn't wait for an answer. He hung up, throwing the burner phone out into the snowy abyss. He looked at Caleb. "Okay, kid, let's go get your mom." The burner phone, discarded by Marcus, lay silent in the deep snow of the overlook, its brief, desperate transmission swallowed by the storm. Marcus Vance didn't wait to see if his gamble had paid off. He slid the Subaru into gear, the cracked Aegis drive heavy in his tactical vest pocket, and descended the mountain, plunging back into the icy, rain-slicked streets of Portland. He drove with a cold, singular purpose, the city lights blurring into a watercolor of neon and fog. Beside him, Caleb sat rigid, his small 5-year-old body vibrating with a silent terror that mirrored the low hum of the engine. The boy clutched the thick fur of Sarge's ruff, the German shepherd a solid, warm presence in the dark, his amber eyes fixed on Marcus, waiting for the next command. "It's okay to be scared, Caleb," Marcus said, his own voice rough, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "But your mom needs us. We're going to be brave for her." Caleb didn't answer, but he nodded, his small chin set with a fragile, heartbreaking resolve. The Ethelred Wellness Center was in the Pearl District, a monument of dark glass and brushed steel that screamed quiet, expensive discretion. It looked less like a clinic and more like a high-end private bank. There were no visible guards, no barred windows. The only security was a single discreet keypad by the smoked glass doors. It was the kind of fortress designed to keep the world out, and, Marcus realized, to keep its patients in. He parked across the street, in the shadows of an alley, and cut the engine. The silence was heavy. "Sarge, watch," he commanded. The dog let out a low, affirmative, "Woof." "Caleb, I need you to stay here. Stay with Sarge. Lock the doors. Do not open them for anyone but me. Do you understand?" Caleb nodded again, his eyes huge. Marcus handed him the other burner phone from his go bag, the one Leo had given him for this purpose. "If I'm not back, or if you hear noise, you press the green button. You just press it once. Leo will hear you." He was strapping on his tactical vest, checking the mag on his sidearm, when headlights swept the alley. A standard Portland Police Bureau cruiser, black and white, slid to a stop behind him. Marcus's hand went to his weapon. He stepped out of the Subaru, shielding Caleb from view. The cruiser door opened. Detective Ryan Mac McKenzie emerged, his rumpled, 45-year-old frame looking exhausted and out of place against the high-end architecture. His salt-and-pepper hair was matted with rain, his trench coat soaked. He looked at Marcus, his face a mask of profound conflict. "Vance," Mac growled, his voice thick with anger and something else, resignation. "You've lost your damn mind. You're a fugitive. I should take you in right now." "Are you?" Marcus asked, his voice flat, not moving from his defensive stance. Mac stared at him for a long, heavy moment. He looked at the sterile, imposing ethyl-red building, then back at Marcus. He finally sighed, the sound a ragged cloud of vapor in the cold air. "David," he said, the name sounding rusty. He was a good cop. He deserved better than what I wrote in that report. I was a coward, Vance. I was scared of Cole." He pulled his own service weapon from its shoulder holster, checking the action. "So, no, I'm not arresting you. But when this is over, you are buying the drinks. What's the plan?" Relief hit Marcus, but he didn't show it. "Plan is simple. We go in, we get the mother, we get out." "The door's a maglock, Aegis Tech," Mac said, all business now, "but I'm still a detective." He walked to the keypad and entered a universal 7-digit police override code. The light on the panel flashed green, and the heavy glass door hissed open. "Let's go." The interior was silent, sterile, and smelled of lavender and antiseptic. Soft classical music played from hidden speakers. They moved past an empty white marble reception desk, their boots silent on the plush carpet. "Leo's intel said 3rd floor," Marcus whispered. "Patient rooms." "Elevator's too loud," Mac grunted, pointing to the stairwell. They took the stairs, emerging into a hallway identical to the lobby, white, sterile, and silent. They were halfway down the hall when 2 men in black medical scrubs stepped out of a room. They were not orderlies. They were Aegis. Both were hard, muscled, and had the same detached, cold eyes as Kyle. They moved to block the hall. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" the first one asked, his hand slipping inside his scrubs. Mac didn't wait. He was a bull. He rushed the first guard, his 230-pound frame slamming into the man, driving him back against the wall with a sickening crack of drywall. The second guard lunged at Marcus. Marcus, trained for speed and precision, sidestepped the clumsy punch, used the man's momentum against him, and applied a chokehold, sinking him to the carpet in seconds. Mac finished his own opponent with a heavy pistol whip, and the man crumpled. It was brutal, fast, and silent. "Room 312, Marcus read from Leo's text. He kicked the door open. It wasn't a patient room. It was a cell. A woman was strapped to a medical chair in the center of the room, an IV drip in her arm. She was pale, in her late 20s, with long, matted dark hair and defiant, terrified eyes. This was Isabel Reyes, Caleb's mother. "Isabel?" Marcus said, holstering his weapon and pulling out his knife to cut the restraints. "I'm Detective Vance, your son, Caleb. He's safe. He's waiting for me." Isabel's eyes flooded with tears, a mix of disbelief and hope. "Caleb, my baby, he's alive? He's alive," Marcus said gently, "but we need your help. We have the drive. The Aegis ledger, it's voice-locked. We need the key." It's my name. And his birthday," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "But it won't matter. Cole, he's coming." The polished ding of the elevator at the end of the hall punctuated her sentence. The doors slid open. Victor Cole stood. There, his silver-gray hair immaculate, his black cashmere coat untouched by the storm. He was flanked by Kyle, whose face was a mask of cold fury, and 2 more Aegis guards. Cale was holding the empty blue backpack. "Well, Detective Vance," Victor Cole said, his cultured voice echoing in the sterile hall, "your persistence is inconvenient. And Detective Mackenzie, joining a lost cause? How tragically noble. Give me the drive, Marcus." "It's over, Cole," Mac yelled, his weapon trained on the group. "We have the ledger." Cole laughed, a dry, cold sound. "You have a paperweight. It's locked. And the key," he motioned to Isabel, "isn't going anywhere. Kale, retrieve the drive and bring me the boy. He's in the black Subaru across the street." Marcus's blood froze. They knew. They'd been watching. Kale and the guards advanced. It was a fatal funnel, a gunfight they couldn't win. "Now, Isabel!" Marcus yelled, pulling out the burner phone and hitting the green button, putting it on speaker. "The password! Say it! Now!" Cole's eyes widened. "Stop her!" Kale lunged. But Isabel, seeing her one chance, took a deep, shuddering breath and screamed into the phone, her voice raw with desperation and love. "Isabel Reyes! Caleb Reyes, 9045, September 4th, 2015. On the other end of the line, in his chaotic shop, Leo Custis heard the audio. "Got it," he yelled, typing the sequence. The file Ledger V1 unlocked. A list scrolled across his screen. Names, dates, bank accounts, a list of some of the most powerful people in Oregon. "It's uploading, Marcus!" Leo shouted into his own mic. "It's uploading to the PPB main server, the FBI field office, and the Oregonian news desk. It's done. The ledger is public." Cole heard Leo's voice echo from the phone in Marcus's hand. The mask of calm shattered. For the first time, Victor Cole looked terrified. "No," he roared, pure panic in his voice. "KL, get that drive. Get him." Kale fired. The hallway erupted in chaos. Mac returned fire, laying down suppression. Go, Vance. Get her out." Marcus grabbed the weakened Isabel, pulling her toward the stairwell. Mac took a round to his shoulder, grunting in pain but holding his ground, blocking Kale. Alarms blared. The building was on lockdown. Marcus, half carrying Isabel, burst out of the stairwell into the alley. He saw the Subaru. The back door was open. Sarge was standing guard, barking. Caleb was peeking out, his small face pale. "Mommy," Caleb whispered, his voice breaking. Isabel collapsed to her knees, pulling herself free from Marcus. "Caleb!" she cried, crawling toward him. Caleb scrambled from the car, running into her arms. The two of them met in the middle of the rain-soaked alley, a desperate, sobbing embrace, mother and son reunited. As sirens, real, numerous, and loud, closed in, Marcus Vance stood watch, his weapon lowered, and finally, for the first time in 2 years, he took a breath. The story of Marcus and Caleb is a reminder that even in the darkest storm, God is at work. The true miracle wasn't just Sarge finding Caleb, it's that in saving Caleb, Marcus saved himself. God didn't just rescue a child, he redeemed a broken detective, using a loyal K9, C9, and a small boy to show him what was worth fighting for. In our daily lives, we pass people living in their own cold containers of fear or despair. God doesn't always send thunder. Sometimes he sends a whisper. Sometimes he sends us. You have the power to be the miracle someone else is praying for. Be the one who stops, the one who helps, or the one who finally chooses the right side. If this story of hope touched your soul, please share it with someone who needs a light right now. And comment below, what moment moved you the most? Sarge's loyalty, Mac's redemption, or the reunion? We read them all. To see our next story, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Thank you for watching. May God bless you and your families, and may He always light your path even in the darkest storm.